It was one of those nights where the air felt thicker than it should, like even the sky knew something was about to happen. Travis stood by the edge of the terrace, beer sweating in his hand, eyes following Linda like he couldn't help himself. She was laughing, her dress catching the breeze just enough to look like a moment frozen in time. Nicholas clapped him on the back, a grin playing at his lips. "You're gonna lose her tonight," he said, half joking, half warning. Travis didn't answer. He already knew. The party was supposed to be a celebration, Susan's engagement, or maybe her new job. Nobody was really clear. People just needed an excuse to dress up, drink too much, and dance to the same old songs that dragged them back into memories they weren't ready to deal with. Then the opening notes of that song started playing. Their song. Travis felt it like a punch to the ribs. It was a slow build, piano first, and then the voice that once filled every silent drive home, every long Sunday morning spent wrapped in sheets and dreams. His fingers tightened around the bottle until his knuckles went white. Linda's eyes widened for just a second, just enough for him to catch it. She knew exactly what was happening. Nicholas was already moving, weaving through the crowd, with that stupid smile plastered across his face. And Linda, beautiful, breathtaking, cruel Linda, waited. The music wrapped around them as Nicholas dropped to one knee, the whole crowd gasping in that rehearsed movie scene kind of way. Travis stood frozen as he watched Nicholas pull out the ring, the one Travis had seen once in a jewelry store window, the one he never dared buy because he thought he had more time. Linda's hands flew to her mouth in fake surprise, but Travis could see through it. He could always see through it. Her eyes flickered to him, just once, just long enough. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was victory. He would never know. The applause started even before she said yes. It rose like a tidal wave, drowning out the last words of their song. Travis clapped too, slow and deliberate, feeling each slap of his palms like it was breaking something inside him. And then he turned, walking away from the fairy lights and champagne cheers, the crowd parting like smoke around him. Susan caught up to him outside, heels clicking angrily against the pavement. "Are you really doing this?" she hissed, grabbing his arm. He shook her off without a word. There was nothing left to say. Everything that needed saying had already been buried under the weight of all the things he didn't do, all the things he never said when he still had the chance. The night swallowed him whole, the music growing fainter with each step, until it was nothing but a ghost behind him, and somewhere, maybe, Linda was laughing. Maybe she was crying. Travis didn't care. Not anymore. Travis didn't go home. He didn't even know where he was walking to. He just needed to move, needed to let the city pull the anger out of him one step at a time. His shoes scuffed against the sidewalk, hands buried deep in his jacket pockets. His mind kept replaying it, the way Linda looked at him right before she said yes, the way her lips trembled like she almost didn't want to. Almost. He ended up at a bar he hadn't been to in years, the kind of place where the lights were low. The music was nothing but a hum, and nobody asked questions. Travis slid into a booth and ordered a whiskey neat. He didn't sip it. He threw it back like it was medicine for a disease he couldn't name. Susan showed up less than an hour later, sliding into the booth across from him without asking. She looked different in the low light, her hair messier, her makeup smudged just enough to show that maybe she was hurting too. Travis didn't ask why she was there. He figured Susan had her own reasons for chasing ghosts tonight. "You loved her too much," she said after a while, spinning the straw in her drink. He laughed, bitter and low. "Or not enough." Susan shook her head. "No, you loved her in a way that made her scared." The words sat there between them, sharp and mean. Travis didn't argue. Maybe Susan was right. Maybe Linda had always been more comfortable with someone like Nicholas, safe, predictable, easy to walk away from when the shine wore off. Travis had loved her with everything he had, every broken part of himself laid bare, and maybe that was the real mistake. "I'm not staying," Susan said, standing up. "But you should know." She looked at you the whole time, Travis, not him. You. He didn't watch her leave. He just stared into his empty glass, like maybe it could tell him what the hell he was supposed to do now. Outside, the city buzzed and moaned, alive in a way Travis couldn't feel anymore. By the time he stumbled out into the night, the streets were starting to empty. Drunks shouted across sidewalks, cars honked without patience, and somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed like a heart breaking wide open. Travis stuffed his hands deeper into his pockets, pulling his jacket tighter against the cold. His phone buzzed once in his pocket. He pulled it out. A text from an unknown number. Meet me, please. No name, no location. Just those 3 words, heavy as a loaded gun, and somehow, without thinking, Travis knew. It was Linda. Travis stared at the screen for a long time, the glow of it painting his face pale against the night. Every instinct in him screamed to ignore it, to turn around and let the night swallow whatever this was supposed to be. But his thumb moved. Before his brain could stop it, typing out a simple word. Where? The reply came almost instantly. The old pier. By the water. Of course it would be there. That cursed place where they used to meet when the world felt too loud, too big. It was their hideout. Back when things made sense, when love didn't come with a price tag or an expiration date. Travis pocketed the phone and started walking, his stomach twisting itself into knots tighter than any noose. The pier was abandoned at this hour, creaking under the weight of memories. The boards groaned beneath his feet as he moved forward, the salty sting of the ocean air wrapping around him. He spotted her near the end of the pier, her silhouette lit up by the crooked street lamp above, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding in a scream. Linda turned when she heard his footsteps, her face pale, her eyes too bright. Travis stopped a few feet away, hands clenched at his sides. Neither of them spoke for a long, painful minute. You shouldn't have come, Linda finally said, voice raw. Then why text me? Travis said, harsher than he intended. Linda flinched like the words themselves slapped her. She looked down at the planks of wood, at her own trembling hands. I don't know. Maybe because I'm a coward. Maybe because I thought if I saw you, it would hurt less. And Travis asked, voice barely a whisper, it hurts more. The way she said it cracked something in him. He hated her in that moment. Hated the way she made him feel alive and dead all at once. Hated that even now, when she belonged to someone else, she could still summon him with 3 goddamn words. Why him? Travis asked, the question slipping out before he could choke it down. Linda wiped at her eyes, shaking her head. Because Nicholas was easy. He was simple. He didn't make me feel like I was standing at the edge of a cliff every damn second. And I did. You still do, she whispered. The wind picked up, whipping her hair around her face. Travis stepped closer without meaning to, drawn to her like a moth to a flame he already knew would burn him alive. He could smell the salt of her skin, the faint trace of the perfume he used to bury his face into when the nights got too cold. You said yes, he said. It wasn't a question. It was a wound. Linda nodded slowly. I said yes because it's what everyone expected. Because I'm tired of disappointing people. What about what you want? Travis demanded, his voice breaking. Linda looked at him then, really looked at him, like she was memorizing the face she was about to destroy. What I want doesn't matter anymore. Travis laughed, a broken, joyless sound that carried out over the water. You keep telling yourself that, Linda. Maybe one day you'll believe it. She took a step toward him, reaching out like she might touch him, but her hand dropped back to her side at the last second. The distance between them felt like a canyon too wide to ever cross. I love you, Travis, she said, voice trembling. Then, why are you marrying him? The silence that followed was deafening. Linda turned away first, staring out at the black expanse of ocean that seemed to stretch forever. I don't know, she said, and it sounded like the saddest thing he'd ever heard. The words sat there between them, heavy and cold, weighing Travis down in a way no amount of whiskey or anger could shake loose. He stood there, staring at the back of her head, watching her shoulders rise and fall with shaky breaths. The ocean hissed against the rocks below, spitting salt into the air like it was mocking them. You don't get to say that, Travis finally said, voice low and shaking. You don't get to tell me you love me and then choose someone else. Linda turned, and there were tears in her eyes now, real ones, not the kind she could blink away or fake with a pretty smile. I don't want to hurt you, she said. Too late, Travis snapped. It came out sharper than he meant, but he didn't take it back. She needed to hear it. She needed to feel it. She flinched like he'd struck her, arms wrapping tighter around herself. For a second, Travis almost wanted to pull her close, tell her it was okay, tell her he understood, even if he didn't. But he stayed frozen, locked in place by the weight of all the things they'd never be able to fix. I thought, maybe if I did the right thing, if I settled down, if I lived the life everyone wanted for me. Linda's voice broke completely, and she shook her head like she hated herself. Maybe it would make it easier to forget you. You'll never forget me, Travis said, a quiet promise, or maybe a curse. Linda let out a small, broken laugh, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. No, it won't. The streetlight above them buzzed and flickered, casting them into brief darkness before flaring back to life. For a heartbeat, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. You could still leave, Travis said. The words tasted bitter, desperate. You don't have to marry him. Linda looked at him like he was a dream she was waking up from. And what then, Travis? We run off together? Pretend the world doesn't exist? How long before you hate me for ruining your life? I could never hate you, he said immediately, and he meant it. God help him, he meant it. She smiled then, sad and soft, the kind of smile you give someone you're about to say goodbye to forever. You will, she whispered. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you will. The wind howled around them, pulling at their clothes, their hair, their hearts. Travis stepped forward again, closing the gap until they were just inches apart. He could feel her breath on his skin, could see every freckle, every scar time had carved into her. You're wrong, he said. I'll hate myself first. Linda reached up then, fingers brushing his cheek so lightly he barely felt it. I'm sorry, she breathed, and then she was moving past him, her perfume lingering in the cold air like a memory that would never quite die. Travis didn't turn around. He couldn't. If he watched her walk away again, he knew something inside him would shatter beyond repair. He listened to her footsteps fading down the pier, each one ripping another piece of him away, and when he finally did turn, she was gone. Travis didn't move for a long time. He stood there, staring at the empty pier, the ocean beyond it swallowing everything, even the sounds of her leaving. The world around him blurred at the edges, like nothing was real anymore, like he was stuck in some kind of bad dream he couldn't wake up from. He finally forced himself to walk, slow and heavy, every step feeling like he was dragging dead weight. His chest hurt in a way that wasn't sharp like a knife but deep, steady, relentless, like a bruise that would never fade. The streets were emptier now. The city had gone quiet, and the night felt colder. Travis shoved his hands deeper into his jacket and kept his head down, not trusting himself to look around, not trusting the tears burning the corners of his eyes. He didn't even know where he was going. Maybe he was hoping if he kept moving, he could outrun the memory of her standing there, under that flickering light, saying words that killed him softly. He ended up back at his apartment without remembering how he got there. The door creaked as he pushed it open, the familiar scent of stale coffee and old wood hitting him in the face. He dropped his keys on the counter, kicked off his shoes, and collapsed onto the couch, not bothering to turn on the lights. His phone buzzed again in his pocket. For one stupid second, hope flared up in his chest like a match. Maybe it was her. Maybe she changed her mind. But when he pulled it out, it was Nicholas. Thanks for coming tonight, man. Means a lot. Travis stared at the message, disbelief turning into a cold, hollow laugh. He tossed the phone across the room, hearing it hit the wall and crack. But he didn't care. Let it break. Everything else already had. He leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. Images of Linda floated in and out of his mind, twisted and poisoned now. Her laugh, her smile, her voice whispering promises she probably never intended to keep. He wondered how she was feeling right now. Was she crying too? Was she lying awake beside Nicholas, staring at the ceiling like him, wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life? Or was she already erasing him from her heart, piece by piece, like a name written in sand washed away by the tide? The thought made Travis sick. He didn't know when he drifted into sleep, but when he woke up, the first pale light of morning was creeping in through the curtains. His body ached, stiff and cold from sleeping in his clothes, but he didn't move. He just lay there, staring blankly at nothing, feeling the weight of everything settle heavier on his chest. Somewhere in the building, a radio was playing softly, a song he didn't recognize. For a moment, it felt like the world was moving on without him, like he was stuck in yesterday, while everyone else raced ahead. He sat up slowly, his joints protesting, his heart dragging behind him. There was no grand revelation waiting for him this morning, no magic answer to fix the hollow space Linda had left behind. There was just the empty apartment, the broken phone, and the pieces of a future he once believed in, scattered at his feet. The day dragged on, colorless and slow. Travis moved through it like a ghost, going through the motions, because that's what people did when they didn't know how to fall apart properly. He made coffee he didn't drink, opened cabinets he didn't need anything from, stared out windows that offered nothing but empty streets and a sky that couldn't decide if it wanted to rain. At some point, he found himself sitting at his tiny kitchen table with a pen and a blank sheet of paper in front of him. He didn't know why he picked up the pen, didn't know what he thought he was going to write. A goodbye? An apology? A scream he couldn't voice? He just stared at it for a long time, feeling more useless by the second. The knock at the door was soft, hesitant, like whoever was on the other side wasn't sure if they should even be there. For one terrible, desperate second, he thought it might be Linda. He opened the door anyway. It was Susan. She stood there, hands stuffed into the pockets of a sweatshirt to sizes too big, her face bare and serious. She didn't smile, didn't even try. I figured you'd be a mess, she said simply, stepping past him into the apartment like she belonged there. Travis closed the door and leaned against it, too tired to pretend he cared. You figured right. Susan grabbed a glass from the counter and poured herself some of the stale coffee still sitting in the pot. She wrinkled her nose after one sip, but didn't complain. She just watched him over the rim of the cup, something soft and dangerous in her eyes. Linda's not happy, she said after a minute. Travis snorted, pushing off the door and flopping onto the couch. Not my problem anymore. Susan sat across from him, tucking one leg up under her body. You think this is easy for her? You think she's just sitting there, planning wedding colors and smiling like none of this matters? She made her choice, Travis said, staring at the ceiling again. It felt safer than looking at Susan. Maybe she made it because she thought you were done fighting for her, Susan said, voice quiet but firm. Travis dropped his gaze to her finally. I'm supposed to fight for someone who already gave up? Susan didn't answer right away. She set the glass down carefully, as if the wrong move would shatter everything around them. Sometimes people make terrible choices because they think they're protecting the people they love. Travis laughed, a hollow, painful sound. Yeah, well, it's a hell of a way to show it. They sat in silence for a long time. The city outside buzzed and hummed, alive and indifferent to the wreckage. Sitting in that tiny apartment, you should talk to her, Susan said eventually. Really talk. Not just about what hurts, about what's still there. There's nothing left, Travis said, almost convincing himself. Susan stood up, smoothing her sweatshirt down, her face unreadable. Then why are you still here thinking about her instead of moving on? She didn't wait for an answer. She just walked to the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. You're not as broken as you think, Travis. You're just still bleeding. And then she was gone, leaving him alone again with the buzzing of his own mind, and the unbearable question he couldn't shake. What if she was right? The night crept in again, heavy and slow, stretching each hour into something almost unbearable. Travis didn't bother turning on any lights. He just sat on the couch, staring at the broken screen of his phone on the floor like it might offer him some kind of answer. Susan's words kept chewing at the edge of his mind. Maybe he wasn't broken. Maybe he was just too stubborn to admit he was still bleeding over something he refused to let go. He picked up the phone finally, thumbing through the shattered glass. The screen flickered, resisting, but came to life. No new messages, no missed calls, of course not. He didn't know how long he sat there, trapped somewhere between wanting to move and being too afraid to. He thought about Linda, how she looked at him on the pier, how her voice cracked when she said she loved him, how she chose Nicholas anyway. It felt like betrayal and devotion tangled up so tightly he couldn't tell which hurt worse. Travis pulled himself off the couch and grabbed his jacket. If he stayed here another second, he was going to drown in his own damn silence. He needed air, space, a different kind of emptiness than the one inside his chest. The streets were colder now, the kind of cold that cuts through clothes and straight into bone. He walked aimlessly again, hands stuffed into his pockets, letting the city guide him wherever it wanted. He passed couples bundled together against the chill, their laughter loud and careless. He passed closed shops with Christmas lights still clinging to their windows like fading hopes. Eventually, his feet carried him somewhere familiar, somewhere he hadn't meant to go. Linda's apartment building. He stopped across the street, staring up at her window. Her light was on, a soft yellow glow spilling out like a secret she didn't know she was telling. He should have turned around, should have walked away, just like she had. But something rooted him there, something stubborn and broken and stupidly hopeful. Before he could talk himself out of it, he was crossing the street, heart hammering so hard it almost drowned out the sound of his own footsteps. He stood at her door for a moment, hand hovering over the buzzer. He almost didn't press it, almost. But then the door clicked open without him even touching it, and there she was, Linda, barefoot in an oversized sweater, hair pulled into a messy knot, eyes wide with something that wasn't quite surprise and wasn't quite fear. They stared at each other, neither one speaking, the air between them thick and heavy. "You," she started, voice small and broken. "You came." Travis swallowed hard, his throat dry as paper. "You texted." Linda looked down at her feet, then back up at him, her eyes shining. "I didn't think you would. I almost didn't." They stood there, tangled in all the words they couldn't say, all the damage they couldn't undo. Travis took a slow step forward, and when Linda didn't move away, he took another. "Tell me the truth," he said, voice rough. "Right now." "No. More games." Linda bit her lip, like she was trying to hold back everything all at once. And then she nodded, blinking away tears that spilled down anyway. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Scared of what it means to love you. Scared of how much I need you. Scared. I'm going to ruin everything if I choose you." "You already ruined everything by pretending you didn't," Travis said, softer than he meant. Linda let out a shaky breath and nodded again, this time slower. "I know." The space between them closed until there was nothing left. No pier, no broken promises, no Nicholas. Just two people standing in the wreckage, trying to find each other again. "I don't want safe," she said, voice trembling. "I want you." Travis reached out, brushing her cheek with the back of his hand, the touch so light it almost wasn't there. "Then stop running." She closed her eyes, leaning into his hand, like she was making a choice, and when she opened them again, Travis saw it, the truth, the wreckage, the love, all of it. Linda stepped back just slightly, enough to let Travis into the apartment without a word. He crossed the threshold slowly, heart slamming in his chest, every nerve on fire. The door clicked shut behind him, a soft final sound that felt like the beginning of something neither of them could name yet. The apartment was warm, dimly lit by a single lamp near the couch. It smelled like her, something sweet and clean that made Travis's chest ache even more. She stood there watching him, arms crossed tightly like she was trying to hold herself together. "Does he know you're here?" Travis asked, voice low. Linda flinched, her arms dropping to her sides. "No, he thinks I'm at my mother's." Travis swallowed, fighting the sour taste in his mouth. "You're engaged to him, Linda. You can't do this halfway." "I know," she said quickly, stepping closer, desperation bleeding into her voice. "I know how bad this looks. I know what I said, what I promised him. I know, I'm a mess right now." Travis didn't move. He just stared at her, waiting for the part that mattered, waiting for the part where she chose. "I broke it off," Linda said, almost whispering. "An hour after you left the pier." It hit him like a gut punch. He blinked, trying to catch up. "You did what?" His voice cracked despite himself. "I told him I couldn't do it, that it was wrong." Her hands were shaking, so she stuffed them into the sleeves of her sweater. "He didn't fight. He didn't even look surprised." Travis let out a slow, ragged breath, dragging his hand through his hair. "So why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't think you'd want me anymore," she said, voice breaking. "Not after everything." He shook his head, anger and heartbreak swirling inside him. "You don't get to decide that for me." "I know." She looked at him with so much raw pain in her eyes that it nearly knocked him backward. "But I'm telling you now, if you still want me, if there's still anything left to save, I'm here." The room buzzed with electricity, the air charged and thick. Travis took a step closer, then another. His hands itched to touch her, to pull her in, but he needed to be sure. "I'm not some safety net," he said, voice trembling. "I'm not something you fall back on because you're scared." "I'm not scared anymore," Linda said, steady now. "I'm standing here, Travis, choosing you, knowing exactly what that means." The air between them cracked wide open. Travis could feel it, something real, something honest rising up between all the broken parts. Without thinking, he reached for her. Linda met him halfway, crashing into him so hard it knocked the air from his lungs. She clung to him like he was the only thing keeping her upright, burying her face against his chest. Travis wrapped his arms around her tightly, anchoring her to him like he could keep her from slipping away again. They stood like that for a long time, no words needed. The city outside moved on without them, but inside that tiny apartment, the world finally stopped spinning. When Linda finally pulled back, she looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes and a trembling smile. "I love you," she said again, clear this time without fear. And this time, Travis believed her. "I love you too," he said, voice rough with everything he'd been holding back. Then he kissed her, and it wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate, raw, filled with every second they had lost and every second they still had left to fight for. It was messy. It was imperfect. It was real. And for the first time in a long time, Travis let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, love was worth the wreckage it left behind. The kiss deepened, pulling every broken piece of Travis back together in a way he hadn't thought was possible. Linda's hands were gripping the back of his jacket like she was afraid he might vanish if she let go. He wasn't going anywhere. Not this time. When they finally broke apart, breathing hard, Travis rested his forehead against hers. They stood there in the quiet, the sound of their hearts louder than anything outside those walls. No promises were needed, no fancy words. It was all right there in the way she clutched him, in the way he held her like the world might end if he let go. Linda tugged him gently toward the couch, and they collapsed onto it together, limbs tangled, and laughter bubbling out of them, soft, nervous, real. It wasn't the polished, perfect moment from some romantic movie. It was messy and awkward and absolutely perfect because it was theirs. She curled against him, her head tucked under his chin, and Travis just held her, breathing her in, feeling the rise and fall of her chest against his. He could feel the exhaustion in her body, the way the past few days had drained her down to the bone. But there was something else too, something new and electric and alive humming under her skin.